The air in Fátima was thick with the scent of incense and the hushed prayers of over 1 million pilgrims who had gathered under the Portuguese night sky. It was May 12, 1982, and the atmosphere was one of profound gratitude and spiritual renewal. Pope John Paul II, the Pilgrim Pope, had come to this sacred site to fulfill a deeply personal vow. Exactly 1 year earlier, he had narrowly escaped death in St. Peter's Square, and he believed with all his heart that the Virgin of Fátima had redirected the assassin's bullets to save his life. But as he walked through the sea of flickering candles, a shadow was moving against the tide of devotion. A man in a dark cassock, eyes burning with a radical fervor that transcended simple dissent, was reaching into his robes for a weapon. The world was about to witness a second attempt on the life of the Holy Father, a moment of violence that would be shrouded in secrecy for more than a quarter of a century. Before we dive deeper into this harrowing night in Portugal, remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. Your support helps us continue uncovering the most chilling and significant crimes in history, one day at a time. Now, let's return to the events of May 12, 1982. The journey to Fátima was supposed to be a triumph of faith over fear. Following the 1981 shooting by Mehmet Ali Ouiga, the Pope's recovery had been viewed by many as a miracle. He had spent months in the hospital, undergoing multiple surgeries, and his return to the public stage was a symbol of resilience. He chose the anniversary of the first attack to visit the shrine where the Virgin Mary was said to have appeared to 3 shepherd children in 1917. For John Paul II, this wasn't just a state visit, it was a pilgrimage of the soul. He intended to place the bullet that had nearly killed him into the crown of the statue of Our Lady of Fátima as an act of devotion. The security was tight, or so it seemed, as the Portuguese authorities and the Vatican's own protection detail prepared for the massive crowds. Yet, the greatest threat didn't come from a professional hitman or a political cell, but from within the very institution the Pope led. Juan María Fernández y Krohn was not a typical assassin. Born in Spain, he was a highly educated man, a lawyer, and a priest who had been ordained by the ultra-traditionalist Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. Krohn was a man consumed by a singular, toxic conviction that the reforms of the Second Vatican Council were destroying the Catholic Church from within. To him, Pope John Paul II was not a holy leader, but a dangerous radical, a secret communist agent, and a Polish Jew who was leading the faithful toward perdition. Krohn's descent into extremism had been gradual but absolute. He had been expelled from his religious order for his radical views, but his zeal only intensified. He traveled to Fátima not to pray, but to perform what he considered a cleansing act. He believed that by removing the Pope, he would save the Church from the modernist rot he saw everywhere. As the Pope moved toward the altar for the evening prayer service, the crowd pressed in, reaching out to touch his garments or receive a blessing. Krohn had positioned himself near the front, blending in perfectly with the other clergy in his traditional black cassock. He waited for the precise moment when the Pope was most vulnerable, distracted by the fervor of the pilgrims. In his hand, he concealed a 16-inch Mauser bayonet, a brutal, jagged relic of war. As the Holy Father passed by, Krohn lunged forward with a guttural cry, the blade gleaming in the candlelight. He managed to get within inches of the Pope, the bayonet's tip tearing through the white fabric of the papal cassock. The suddenness of the attack sent a shockwave through the immediate vicinity, as the peaceful chanting of the choir was pierced by screams of terror. The response from the security detail was instantaneous but frantic. Portuguese police and plainclothes Vatican security tackled Krohn to the ground before he could strike a second time. The assailant struggled with a manic strength, shouting, "Down with the Pope! Down with the Second Vatican Council!" even as he was pinned to the stone floor. For a few heart-stopping seconds, the entire ceremony ground to a halt. The Pope, however, remained remarkably calm. He paused, looked down at the man being hauled away, and then continued his walk toward the altar. To the millions watching on television and the hundreds of thousands in the square, it appeared as though the attack had been thwarted completely, and that the Holy Father was unharmed. The official Vatican statement that night and in the days following, emphasized that the Pope was unhurt, and that the incident was merely a menacing gesture by a disturbed individual. But the official narrative was a carefully constructed lie. It would take 26 years for the truth to emerge. In 2008, Cardinal Stanislaw Dziwisz, who had been the Pope's longtime personal secretary and was by his side that night, revealed the hidden reality in a documentary and his memoirs. The bayonet had actually found its mark. "I can now reveal that the Holy Father was wounded," Dziwisz stated. "When we got back to the room, there was blood. Krohn's blade had sliced into the Pope's side, causing a significant wound that began to bleed through his white robes." Despite the pain and the risk of infection, John Paul II insisted on completing the ceremony. He refused to let the attacker's violence overshadow the message of peace and gratitude he had come to deliver. He stood through the long mass, his cassock slowly staining red beneath his vestments, a silent martyr to his own mission. The aftermath of the attack saw Krohn facing the full weight of Portuguese justice. During his trial, he showed no remorse, using the courtroom as a platform to spout his extremist ideologies. He claimed that he had acted out of love for the Church and that the Pope's blood was a necessary sacrifice. The court was unmoved by his fanatical defense, sentencing him to 6.5 years in prison. Even behind bars, Krohn remained a volatile figure, eventually being expelled from Portugal after serving his time. He would later move to Belgium, where he continued to find himself in trouble with the law, including an incident where he climbed a fence at the royal palace in Brussels to protest the visit of the Spanish king. His life became a footnote of radicalism, a stark contrast to the global influence of the man he tried to kill. The Fátima incident of 1982 remains a testament to the complexities of security and the power of will. It highlighted how even the most sacred spaces can be violated by the darkness of human obsession. For Pope John Paul II, the wound was another scar to carry, a physical reminder of the dangers he faced in his quest to bridge divides. The fact that he kept the injury secret for so long speaks to his desire to maintain the focus on the spiritual significance of Fátima rather than his own suffering. It also reflects a different era of the papacy, one where the image of the invincible Holy Father was carefully guarded. Today, the bullet remains in the crown of the Virgin statue, and the memory of that night serves as a reminder that the path of peace is often walked under the constant threat of those who prefer the blade. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.